Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first installment of the Integrity Racing League show. I'm your host, Todd Thomas. I'm joined tonight by League Administrator Jacob Fife and a driver of the Integrity Racing League circuit, Tyler Herr. We'll speak to them in just a minute, but we want to start with a general discussion about the Bristol race. We had a great race at Bristol, won by Tyler Hudson. We'll talk about him in just a little minute. And we're going to talk about the standings of the league, give you a quick update on some league updates, talk about Richmond a little bit towards the end of the show. So that's going to be the general feel. Really quickly, Jacob, we had a great race at Bristol, 250 laps, coming off of a tough couple of weeks at Texas and Martinsville before. What were your general feelings about the Bristol race?
I think it was awesome. We had a great race. We had 62 people show up to queue for the event, and I couldn't have asked for a better group to get out there and race with. We had long green flag runs, and things pretty much went out without a hitch. And obviously, you know, Tyler dominated, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, I really couldn't ask for more.
All right, and Tyler, you were somebody that maybe wasn't up towards the front for much of the race, but kind of found your way towards the front at the end. So mid-pack racing towards the back of the pack a little bit sometimes. I know me and you got collected an instant early that sent us back to the back of the pack. So you were able to see kind of how the racing was throughout the entire event. So how would you classify the race at Bristol?
Bristol itself was beyond surprising in my opinion. You know, everyone goes in there thinking that it's just going to be wreck after wreck after wreck, but really just being able to see everybody race as well as we had, and with how few cautions and ending the race on a 95 lap green run, it was awesome. I just really enjoy racing. Even though I had to battle my way up through the field multiple times, I just thought that was one of the best short track races I've ever had.
All right, so let's dig a little deeper into the Hardcore Paints 250. Like I said earlier, we had 6 cautions for 33 laps, 12 lead changes with 6 different leaders. We're looking at the results page here. Tyler Hudson with a dominating result as the king of the series and a past NPAS champion you would expect. Andrew Fayash, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. A great run to end up in second despite maybe not having the smoothest race. Jacob finished in third. Tyler got a 4th place finish. Derek Bordeaux, who led a lot of laps, led 76 laps, finished out the top 5. Nick Ward with a 6th place finish. William Dunn 7th. Marcus Lambert 8th. Brandon Burkroft 9th. And then yours truly, Todd Thomas, finishing in 10th. So Jacob, talking about the race, let's start with Tyler Hudson. Finishing 12 seconds throughout with the lead there. You were somebody that was in the top 5 racing against Tyler or Mr. Hudson for much of the night. What were your feelings on his race?
Well, he stunk up the show, which congrats to him on that. But all I saw for most of the night was his taillights. You know, I had a good race overall, but like I said, you know, we got in that long run at the very end. I think him and William Dunn kind of took off to begin with, and then William hung around, I guess, for about 50 laps or so, and then he kind of came back to the rest of the field. But Hudson was in a class of his own that night, and we just really, you know, once the long run kicked in, we didn't really have much for him after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody I mentioned we were going to talk about Andrew Fayash, and he's already won a couple races this year, but came out of nowhere, you know, running in the 30s, I didn't even put up a qualifying time, so had to pit on the backstretch. Just nothing seemed to be going right early in the race for him. And then you look at the results after the race, and he's got a 2nd place finish. Tyler, you were running back there with those guys for much of the race, and then with 10 to go, all hell kind of broke loose from the 2nd on back to about 10th spot. You were in that cluster there. Can you kind of give us a quick synopsis of what happened there?
Yeah, with about 10 laps to go, I think I was sitting 9th or something behind Derek, just kind of riding there, and I just sort of decided, all right, I guess it's time to make moves now, because there was nowhere for anyone to go, and all I had open for me was the bottom. I just stuck it down there lap after lap, and just started picking off positions one by one, and coming to the white flag there going into turn 3, I was actually side by side with you, Todd, and the 68, he just broke loose, not sure from where. It
He didn't
just
get broke. He kind of got ran over.
yeah, so he comes down the racetrack and then back up in turn 3, and I was just looking at that move, just thinking, all right, I'll take 4th, and coming out of turn 4, I look behind me, and the rest of the field just died.
Yeah, it was a great finish to a great race. Again, the Hardcore Paints 250. We can't thank our sponsor enough there, so go check out Hardcore Paints. So a really great race to the finish. Yes, Tyler Hudson, class of the field, stunk it up, won by 12 seconds. You can't debate that he was the clearly dominant driver. But a lot of great competition from 2nd on back to 10th and throughout the field, really. So Jacob, I want to get your input as a league administrator, not as a driver, but as a league administrator. You know, Martinsville was not fun, probably, to be a league administrator. And then you had a race like Texas where we had a lot of drama late in the race and a late race wreck. How did it feel as a league administrator to go to Bristol and get to run 217 green flag laps?
Well, it's awesome, really. I mean, you going into the race, I know a lot of people were on edge about the setup and how it would react, you know, during the daytime. I think that particular setup we used that iRacing provided us is usually a nighttime setup, or at least that's the impression we got. And the reaction to it on daytime was completely different. It was hard to handle at times, you know, by ourselves, much less when you pack on 43 people onto the track. So, I mean, to have that type of result with the racing, the give and take, which is something we talk a lot about when we try to have drivers meetings and things of that nature, was really shown throughout the race. You know, there's going to be bumping and banging, and you maybe a temper here and there, but everybody kept their cool, and that just really shows the type of level of talent we have within the league and what we really can do on a week-to-week basis if we can really put our mind to it.
All right. And I don't want to be remiss here while we have a couple minutes before we transition to our next segment. 62 drivers showing up for Bristol. We're at week 8 of the year, and we're still over 60 drivers showing up. Unfortunately, just the way things work, only 43 of our drivers got to compete in the event. But if you're one of those guys that didn't get to compete, we want you to keep trying. It's going to make you a better driver, putting that pressure on yourself. I know, speaking from somebody that did have to qualify in for the first 7 weeks of the season, made us a better driver. So we couldn't be happier to have 62 drivers show up. Jacob, I know as a league administrator, that's something you got to like to see.
Yeah, I definitely like to see the numbers. I also like the fact that I'm not one of the ones that has to qualify. It's really hard. So I know looking at Bristol's Q results, there's some drivers in there who didn't make the field that I thought you know would have had a chance to make it. So any given week is really what it boils down to. I know we're going to Richmond this week, but the week after that, or very soon in the schedule, is Talladega, and that's a complete toss-up. So you know, it's a hard deal, but I appreciate everybody who keeps coming, who keeps trying to get into the field, and it just, like I said, it just makes the league overall better, and hopefully, as part of the goal is hopefully it makes the drivers who are in it better in the process.
Absolutely. So, again, thanks to the drivers. Thanks to our sponsor for the Hardcore Paints 250. We're going to kind of put a bow on that and kind of transition to some league general news. So, one of the segments we're going to do each week on this show is it's going to be starting the next show. Actually, we've already announced this week's penalties. But starting with next week's show, the first time that you're going to get to see or have official penalties announced for the Integrity Racing League is going to be right here on the Integrity Racing League show. So, this is going to be Jacob's kind of David Hoots, Mike Helton, Steve O'Donnell moment where he's going to kind of get to police the league a little bit. So, Jacob, if you want to run us through any new penalties that we might have seen come out of Bristol.
Yeah, well, luckily we had a great race at Bristol, so I don't have to get too much of a laundry list going of things that happened or penalties you have to issue or anything like that. But we do have a couple from Martinsville a couple weeks ago. One would be Matt Busa for Alt F4ing, which basically means since we have so many people trying to get in the league, we want people to race. So if you Alt F4 exit the server, then you're suspended for 5 races. and if you do that without having damage or anything like that, obviously there's some leeway there. But so he is on race 3 of that suspension, if I remember correctly, and he's got 2 or 3 races to go. Drew Carroll also has 2 races left from a suspension between himself and another driver at Martinsville, and then for Bristol, we have another Alt F4 issue with John Hathaway, so he'll be starting 5 races starting next week. So, like I said, as far as contact goes, and beating and banging and things of that nature, luckily we didn't really have any major issues. Hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully this is a short segment each week, because I might have some testy people after me after we do these. But yeah, so pretty good for this week, and hopefully the same thing for Richmond next week.
Yeah, and I think, I just want to emphasize, as somebody that did qualify in, I was lucky enough and had the speed to qualify into each of the races that I had to qualify in. But having teammates that maybe haven't made races, nothing's more frustrating than to them to not make a race and then see somebody that did make a race not take it seriously and just quit out in the middle of the race. So I commend the league and trying to make sure that we represent those drivers in a positive fashion. So, all right, so that's going to wrap up that segment. We're going to transition to just some general league updates and news. And where we're going to start with our league standings page. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up here. You can see Andrew Fayos with 2 victories on the season remains in the points lead with 317 points back. Marcus Lambert, who's actually only competed in 6 of our races, so he's 2 races short of the league total. Stands just 88 points back with a victory as well. William Dunn in 3rd place. Edmund Blasio had a little bit of a tough race at Bristol, dropped 2 spots back to 4th, had some connection issues that cost him a lot of laps. He tried to log as many laps as he could to try to hold his place in the points position, and also the Rookie of the League Cup is important to Adam. So he drops to 4th. He's 102 points back. Jacob's going to round up the top 5, 105 points back. Tyler's in 6th, Tyler Herr. Travin Morgan, we'll talk about him in just a little bit. Also a rookie, a clean race at Bristol, so we'll talk about his points value in just a bit. Gained 2 positions up to 7th. Yours truly falls to 8, or remained in 8th. Jay Heisman gains a spot for 9th. He is 135 back, as is Colton Landis, who kind of rounds out the top 10, tied with Jay for 9th. So, Tyler, when you look at that points table chart, what is one of the first things that you notice? And I also want to get your impression on, as somebody that has won a race, so you are theoretically locked into the chase. Obviously, there's ways that you could get knocked out, but that's not likely. You won the Daytona 250, you got it out of the way early, so you're already locked in. So when you look at this point standing, I'm already locked in. Does it change the way you race? Does it change your goals from race to race?
Not so much, really. My goal from week to week is just being able to stay up in the top 20 of points. Right now I'm sitting 6th, so I'm in a good position to sort of maintain that. I only need to make 6 more races to make the 14 race minimum in order to stay in there, or to make the chase. And if pretty much with how the point system is set up, and next year, if we still have this huge gathering of people trying to even get into the races, if I make the chase, I'm essentially locked in for next year as well, being top 16 in points. So that's sort of what I'm looking to accomplish. And also with all the drivers on that list there, some of the stats there, the top 10s, top 5 statistics, some of those are deceiving, except for, you see Fayos, he has, 6 top 5s, 7 top 10s out of 8 races. And the one race where he didn't finish inside the top 10, he was running all the way up front. So, of course, he has the momentum and the skill to just stay up at the top there. But a lot of the other guys on there, it's kind of deceiving to see the stats they have. Some might have just 2 top 10s, but everyone is so closely matched in skill that one mistake or one move out on the racetrack can actually cost them a bunch of positions, but the competition is just so tough and so close that I'm surprised that the points aren't even tighter still.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll take one last look at the standings here before we throw it to Fife. Fife is somebody that's in the top five who hasn't won a race yet. So unless he does get a win over the next, I think there's 17 races before the chase starts. Unless Fife gets a win, he stands currently. It looks like he's in third place amongst the drivers that don't have a win, with me in fourth of those drivers. So for somebody like you or I, Jacob, that maybe doesn't have a win yet, that's thinking, hey, do you go, I got to go get a win, or are you saying, well, I've also got to consider I want to try to go get as many points as I
Can you do both?
can?
I mean, really, with the competition this year, both is really what you have to shoot for. Um, a win is preferred in my case, but it's really stout competition. This is competition-wise, this is the best that the league has been in its almost 4 years of existence. So where I was able to win races in previous years, I might not have that opportunity, or at least if I do have the opportunity, maybe something happens. But I think for me right now, it's just get as many points as possible, and then after a certain point, you have to kind of hope. Um, if you don't think a win is in sight, you have to hope that Fay Ash or Hudson win a bunch of races, so it opens up spots for people like Todd and I or others to kind of get in on points and have that consistency there. Because I think I can run in the top 10 most races, so as long as I don't mess myself up. So that's really going to be the balance to see as we get further towards chase time and maybe the intensity picks up a little bit, who's going to be on that edge of making it in and maybe need a win, and who's going to be banking on just getting in on points.
Absolutely. So, and I'm going to bring up the standings from the race at Bristol this past Monday. And while we're talking about points, one thing we want to emphasize is that the league has a strong emphasis on close racing, such that bonus points for clean races and penalty points play a huge role. So, for instance, if you can look at the race results from this past Monday, I finished with a 10th place finish, but I'll lose 8 points due to my incident count. Whereas you look at somebody like Traven Morgan, who finished 3 spots behind me, doesn't lose any points and actually gains 2 points for his clean race and 0 incidents. So Traven, even though he finishes 3 spots behind me, ends up with 7 more points, and that has a tremendous value. So we're going to go ahead and transition to our Elkton Golf and Batting update, team update. So see where we are. You can see the standings as I pull them up here on the screen. Lockdown Racing has 3 wins already on the year, so they're at 33.31 points. One Up Motorsports in second place, got another win from Tyler Hudson on Monday. That pulls them within 10 points of the lead. Integrity Racing League with Jacob Fife as a member there, closely on their heels for third place. Two to Green, which is where me and Tyler hail from, we're about 11.5 points back. And Brawl Chassis Works is rounding out our top 5, 13 points back. So, Jacob, if you want to kind of give us a quick synopsis of what the Elkton Golf and Batting Team Championship is, how those points are calculated, and what the end result's going to be there.
Yeah, well, off the top, I do want to thank Adam for coming up with the idea, and then Jay for sponsoring it.
And it's going to be Adam de Blasio?
De Blasio, yes, thank you. I got to specify my Adams.
Yeah.
But basically how the team challenge works is you take all of your drivers that are on your team, those like Two to Green and One Up have over 5, but the cap is 5. We just grandfathered those teams in. And basically you take your average starts for each driver and your average points for each driver, and you just average them together, and that gives your numbers that you see in the standings, and those will fluctuate from race to race. So it does a couple things. One, it kind of adds an extra team interest into a different way to keep score, basically, and it kind of adds extra flair that wasn't in Integrity the past seasons. But since we have so many great teams running with us, we thought it'd be a great idea to kind of add an extra dimension. And then at the end of the season, when we get down to it and we come up with a winner, they get a trophy. So we'll come up with that and send it out to whoever's the lead, whoever begs for it the most, I guess. I don't know, but they'll get a trophy. It'll be a nice little bragging right for the teams as they compete through the season, and I think it'll be a great addition to what we're doing here as far as the league goes.
All right, so Tyler, I know me and you are on the same team, but I just want to get your input on this. With this new team title, have you seen it change the way our team has looked at each race? Have we communicated about pitch strategy a little bit more? Raced any differently based off of the addition of this new Elkton Golf and Batting Team Championship?
Really, the biggest change here, as far as the team dynamic goes, pretty much everyone's trying to actually finish the races as best they can, and of course that causes even more closer competition, which is great. I've heard from several drivers talking to some of their members saying that, all right, if you're gonna, with this new team championship, some of the more, I suppose, firebrand members on the teams, if you will, they're gonna, I've heard some of them being told that, hey, back it down just a little bit more, we know you're fast, so try and finish as best you can without wrecking the car and pulling that average back down to allow another team to step up and try and take that team position away.
Absolutely. So, and one of the neat things I like about this is, yes, Tyler and I come from Two to Green, and so our team has always kind of had that interaction. But the Integrity Racing team that Jacob's kind of formed, those are guys that before this weren't even on a team. So, Jacob, I'm sure that's been an opportunity for you guys to build relationships with maybe people that you didn't interact on a heavy basis with before.
Yeah, when I decided to, when we were deciding to do the team challenge, I wanted to go ahead and get people, obviously, who I thought would race well, but to pick a variety of different people, maybe people I don't talk to normally. Well, I try to talk to everybody, but like you take Brandon Kirkman, for example. He's a rookie to our league this year. James Hudson hasn't been with us for a couple of years. He's come back as part of the team. Obviously, William Dunn is with us as well. He was a great driver, and when you're able to put different people together, it really gives you the opportunity, to talk about different stuff. We've talked about strategy and how we're racing the track, or what times are we getting, and it gives all the drivers the ability to interact with one another better. And also, kind of going back to Tyler's point, I've heard a couple of the team leaders kind of say, hey, look, you've got to finish these races, otherwise you're bringing down our team average, which is good too, because we want people who invest in the league and want to run well within it, but also don't take it so lightly in that, well, if I wreck out on lap 30, it's not a big deal. We've kind of put things in place where, hey, if now it's become, if I drop out at lap 30 or something like that, I'm not just affecting myself, I'm affecting the rest of my team members, and that kind of helps with the league as a whole too.
All right, so at this point, we're going to go towards next week. So we've kind of talked a lot about the league as a whole and then action in the previous week, and we're going to start looking forward as best as we can. And we've gotten a couple of notes from people that might be watching that maybe the screens when I'm sharing different information on the screen isn't as visible as you'd like. I've tried to maximize it as much as I can. So hopefully that's worked. We are still kind of working out the kinks. It is our first broadcast, so we apologize for that. But so we close out the Hardcore Paints 250, and we move to Richmond for the Let's Play at Yakes 87200. That's sponsored by league driver Joseph Yakes. That's his YouTube channel, so we encourage you to check that out. Give that a subscribe and a follow. So the Let's Play Yakes 87200 at Richmond. Last year, Andrew Fayosh, who would have thunk it, right? Scored the victory in the fall race at Richmond. So this week, we go to Richmond. Tyler, I know you haven't turned a lot of laps there, but what are some of your thoughts when you think about Richmond and what kind of racing we can look forward to seeing there?
Well, the first thing that's different about this race is we're going there in the daytime, so there's going to be a lot less grip. And as far as the car goes, There certainly is a lot less grip. You're almost sideways going down the front stretch there, so it's going to be really, really interesting to see how everyone's going to handle not only the qualifying procedure, trying to keep the car under control, but going as fast as you can in order to queue in for those that aren't locked in. But then you take the 43 drivers, put them all side by side, and see how we're going to race out there for 200 laps. And right now, off the top of my head, I'm just thinking here, we're going to see some self-spins coming out of the corners or going into them, but I also think, and this is hopefully just all in my mind here, we might be dealing with a big one at Richmond if everybody's a little on the wilder side there for the race.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on the backstretch. Coming out of turn 2, you've got that inside wall. It narrows up pretty quickly if a couple of cars get sideways. Yes, on the front stretch, you've got the grass oval, so you have a little bit more room to take evasive action, as we'll say. But coming out of 2 on that backstretch, it does narrow up quickly. So, Jacob, you have been able to turn a couple laps. Do you have any type of idea on what kind of times we might be able to expect? And what's your kind of feel of racing the Richmond racetrack during the daylight hours?
It's going to be different for sure. I did a few test laps earlier in the week, and low 22s seemed to be right around where I was at, if I remember correctly. But as it was said before, you know, it's loose. I thought Bristol was bad going into this week, or going to last week. You know, this week is even more interesting, and that's to put it nicely. So what I hope to see, though, first of all, it's a surprise. I want to be surprised again by the racing, but I'm also looking to see is the groove going to widen out? If it's going to be a slicker track, will you have more of an opportunity to get a little higher up and maybe kind of diamond the corner a little bit to get better runs or help with that loose condition we may be facing? And I mean, your usual suspects will probably be the ones back up in front again when you talk about Fayesh and Hudson. And I think Bordeaux might be a good shot to win if he can keep his car clean. So, you know, if those people, you know, stay like they are, I don't see why they couldn't come up again and challenge for the win.
All right, so we want to thank Jacob and Tyler for joining us on the night show. Jacob for hosting the league as usual. So that's going to end our first installment of the Integrity Racing Show. All right, our plan is to be back here every Thursday night at 8 o'clock to kind of give you guys a general synopsis on the week that was, the week to come, and then a general league overview. So thanks for taking the time out of your night to watch the Integrity Racing Show. We hope to see you Monday night at Richmond. Thanks again.